Over the last week, since PlayStation decided to drop their bombshell announcement back on July the 1st that they would no longer be supporting physical media come the start of 2028, saying that they've had a rough go of it would be quite the understatement. From the now over 175 million views this post received to the 105,000 comments, as Paul Tassi of Forbes puts it, the disc decision Sony made is its biggest scandal in 20 years. The post itself has received multiple community notes that Sony seems to be able to keep getting removed, and then another one pops up in its place. And if anything has been made clear by the world of gaming, it's that they are not giving up. The community, that is. And these comments are scathing, ranging from Domino's Pizza saying it makes about as much sense as us changing to digital pizzas, to a comment calling out Sony for selling digital games for the same price as physical copies. More on that in just a bit, which is one of the major concerns with Sony making this all-digital push. However, what may have caught Sony by surprise is just how intense the pushback would become. And so after their epic July 1st tweet and all the action that post saw, they decided to step back and went just comms dark, hoping to ride out the tsunami of pissed off players, returning to X with this post on July the 7th, advertising the new Flex Strike wireless fight stick. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. Which was definitely a tone-deaf post to make in the first place, considering the bombshell they had dropped just 6 days prior. I mean, they could have addressed player concerns, but hey, this is Sony. So they instead took this opportunity to advertise something else for players to buy. The comments to this tweet say it all. F Sony spelled out with digital cases. Roses are red, violets are blue, not buying digital Sony. F you. And here's another one simply saying no disc, no buy. But what's absolutely amazing here is just how much Sony gets hit with backlash now for anything they choose to post and how badly they get ratioed in the process. For instance, here's the July PlayStation Plus monthly games post with 7,900 likes to 23,000 comments that is also carrying a community note saying that digital purchases are licenses, not ownership, and Sony can revoke access. Even a retweet for The Blood of Dawnwalker was the recipient of Sony's strays, as just being retweeted was enough to get a community note and over 19,000 comments. Mortal Shell 2 and developer Cold Symmetry saw much the same treatment from a Sony retweet, another community note citing concerns over Sony attempting to establish a digital monopoly, and over 12,000 comments to just 3,600 likes. In fact, scrolling through PlayStation's Twitter feed, if you're Sony, it can't be giving you a sense of confidence right now. GTA 6, a massive upcoming release coming to PS5, slapped with a community note. Palworld 1.0 is now live on PS5, 5,700 comments, with many of them hitting Sony with the familiar memes and questions about a disc. Even a retweet of an Apex Legends Cyberpunk event wasn't immune to the community notes, and 13,000 comments to just 2,600 upvotes. This push to all digital is Sony's biggest scandal in 20 years, and fans of physical media and games preservation are letting them know about it every step of the way, and the pushback doesn't show any signs of slowing down or stopping. In fact, this battle has every indication that it is something that players are not willing to give an inch on. But, based on what we're seeing from Sony, they don't seem to care. They seem to be oblivious to the community notes and all the backlash. However, what Sony does pay attention to is its real customers, its shareholders, who are focused on making money. And when gamers started hitting Sony and the only place they care about, their bank accounts, that's when we started to see Sony panic and do something that they rarely do, offer up discounts. As Sony tried to ride out the storm following their disastrous all-digital announcement, the community began focusing their efforts, organizing a Save Physical Games petition on change.org, which is now approaching 300,000 signatures, along with large amounts of players canceling their PlayStation Plus subscriptions. And this is when we started to see Sony do anything they could to keep those customers a part of their PlayStation ecosystem. As Pushback says here, PS Plus discounts being offered to fans canceling in protest. Players started receiving 50% off for 3 months offers from Sony in an attempt to bring them back. Some players outright refused that offer, some couldn't pass on it, calling it too good to say no to, while others received varied discounts. Posts have been popping up saying that they were offered 25% to come back after their cancellation. Others say they saw 30%. But Sony is clearly going to do whatever they can to keep customers spending money in their ecosystem. That said, what we are seeing with the varying discounts clearly points to a practice Sony engages in: dynamic pricing. Now, to be fair, lots of companies actually engage in this process, with Sony actually not disclosing this system publicly, which analysts believe they've had deployed somewhere since November 2025. But for many players, based on your region and your spending habits, Sony's system will scrub your buying history and then dynamically price their games and services to buyers based on the internal algorithms. According to GamesIndustry.biz, this dynamic system is impacting the prices of over 150 games across 68 territories, including Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Latin America. More recently, the report shows that personalized discounts are being offered up during sales, with some potential players being offered discounts ranging anywhere between 5.3 and 17.6%, depending on the game, the user, and their purchase price, with the games being offered up coming from both Sony's first-party AAA game studios, along with games from the likes of 2K and Bethesda. Again, is the dynamic pricing system unique to Sony? No. But that doesn't make it any less scummy. So much so that we've seen politicians and legal action be levied against Sony in recent days. Brazilian federal deputy 𝐓𝐡𝐻𝐡𝐮 has requested an investigation into Sony Interactive Entertainment and its plan for a purely digital landscape. Another federal deputy, Jandira Fagali, recently proposed a new bill directly inspired by the Stop Killing Games movement, saying that publishers must clearly inform customers about a game's reliance on online servers at the point of sale. Furthermore, they must also outline the minimum support period, which cannot be less than 2 years from a game's launch in Brazil. The proposal also goes on to say that publishers must inform consumers about any termination of service no less than 180 days in advance, notifying players in the game itself on official social channels and through other means. Now, where this bill gets a bit more interesting is in its options, suggesting 3 options for when an online game is shut down. First, a company can release an update to allow for offline play. Second, provide tools to the community to keep it going themselves. And finally, Sony can reimburse players proportionally based on how much time they've spent with the game, with failure to comply with these regulations incurring fines. But Brazil is not the only one working towards new regulations against Sony, as we just recently saw a Dutch consumer group file a $457 million lawsuit on behalf of 1.7 million Dutch PlayStation users, arguing, listen to this, Sony's 30% PlayStation Store commission will inflate game prices once physical alternatives disappear. And here's where Sony's push to go all digital really reveals itself. You see, right now, you have the option as a consumer to purchase your games from multiple platforms: Epic Games Store, Steam, Amazon, and physical retailers, with the option to even pick up pre-owned copies, often with the prices at these locations outside of PlayStation Store offering huge discounts when compared to Sony. For example, here's Dragon Ball Sparking Zero for PS5, purchased new through Amazon for $29.99. That same game on PlayStation's digital store went for $69.99. And according to a brand new Gadget Review article, there are even more extreme examples to be found, going on to say that during a recent Amazon sale, Lost Soul Aside sold for $9.99 on disc. The PlayStation Store's sale price for the same game at the same time was $39.59, which is 4 times more for the digital file versus the physical. And the pattern continues. Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, $25 on physical versus $42 on digital. That's a 40 to 45% premium for that digital download. NBA 2K24, listen to this one, $29.99 found on a store shelf, $79.99 on the PlayStation Store. Dark Souls 3, under $20 at GameStop, $60 for the digital. And in Australia, physical copies commonly fall below $40 AUD 3 years after launch, while digital prices hold it between 60 to 70 AUD. And that's what this $457 million Dutch lawsuit is actually arguing. You see, when the alternatives are removed from the equation, like outside retailers and secondhand copies, Sony can then funnel all the business through its own digital marketplace, where buyers are then subjected to the Sony tax, which is a 30% price hike applied to its digital downloads sold through the PlayStation Store. Now, Sony has been able to successfully skirt around antitrust claims in the past, pointing towards used games and resale markets as evidence it didn't have a true monopoly over its products and pricing. However, according to analysts now looking over this lawsuit, with Sony's announcement to move to all digital in 2028, they've essentially destroyed their own defense by removing disc and therefore competition. According to a statement made by the chair of this Dutch lawsuit firm, Sony's decision to discontinue the production of physical discs, quote, removes the last place where a PlayStation game could still be bought and sold at a competitive price. No discs means no secondhand market and no alternative to the PlayStation Store. So from 2028, Sony alone decides what a game costs and even how long you're allowed to own it. And look no further from what Sony recently did by deleting 551 movies and TV shows consumers had bought and paid for on the PlayStation Store because their contract with Studio Canal had run out. And so they just deleted the movies with no hint of financial compensation for those purchases. This is Sony's and media's dystopian future. You will own nothing and you're going to be happy about it, at least if these companies get their way. One thing has been made painfully clear over the past weeks, if not months, and that being the old version of Sony that was seemingly consumer-friendly and run by names like Shuhei Yoshida and Shawn Layden. Yeah, that group is long gone. The new PlayStation is looking to be far leaner and to maximize profits over anything, and it's apparent that Hideaki Nishino and Herman Holst are willing to go to war with gamers over prices and their ability to own what they've already bought and paid for. And of course, with Sony PlayStation making this announcement, along with a recent announcement that the most anticipated game of all time, GTA 6's physical edition, will be nothing more than a box with a code in it, you know that other publishers are sitting out there like Ubisoft and they're just rubbing their hands together and licking their chops. Because if you remember, it was a Ubisoft executive who said back in 2024 that we as gamers needed to get comfortable not owning our games. More expensive games with no extras that are offered up in physical editions with expiring licenses and only offered in a singular storefront is exactly what some of these publishers are looking to push for unless gamers fight back. But that's just my take on it, and here's where I turn to you for your feedback. How do you feel about Sony's all-digital future, or the digital future of gaming as a whole? Drop a comment and let's get a healthy discussion going. If you happen to like the video, please hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell. And before I go, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to all of our hardcore channel members. Until the next one, this is Lieutenant Buzz Lightyear, signing off.